We had some very recent write-ups yesterday, and how you can read Hebrew. Moshe Silver was very well pointing to the principles. I asked him to write in English. He's not that adept at it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Huh?
If it's in Hebrew, there's probably half of the people who can.
Yeah, okay. That's his language, you know. I asked him to the extent possible. He says he could write English, but not the fancy writing that you have to do for this, you know.
Yeah, but you answered in Hebrew.
I answered him in Hebrew, sure. What's the point in English? Yeah. All right, we are on page Sadek Zayin. We just at the end of finish the parentheses, which means we are to start 7 lines from the top. The line begins with the words "V'vei hashpos hachochma bevinu." And the Rebbe explains. And he says clearly, I'm presenting to you 2 very distinct views, understanding of Chokhmah. And these 2 views can easily be interchanged. And what I want you to understand is the difference between the 2 of them. As a matter of fact, in some of the writings, there was some overlap. The principle of Chokhmah, as it is presented in this Maimer, in distinction from the way it is presented elsewhere, the Rebbe says, is that Chokhmah actually possesses Meir, Yeshu Amiti. In other words, it does not know of the Yeshu Amiti via an intellectual process, like we said and you say elsewhere. He sees it, even though he sees the whole truth, but nonetheless, and he's connected to it. Still, there is as I said, there is these 3 denominations: the knower and the known, and the ability to know. In here in Chokhmah, there is not that structure, because the oil in Sev Yeshu Amiti, Haina Bechinas Ho Atzmus, Yeshu Amiti itself is Meir in Chokhmah. If the Yeshu Amiti itself is Meir in Chokhmah, then it completely bypasses it, and the whole phenomenon of getting to know it. Yeshu Amiti is emes everywhere. And yesterday, our class extended overtime because I wanted to make sure that we get it, and I'm watching, so to speak, the reaction, the sign of understanding on the faces, and I felt that we are lacking, and I was trying my best that we should get some inspiration. As a result of that, we went into the davening period. Even though davening has been pushed off a long time, it's until 7:30. Still, it was very difficult. And what was left yesterday is this: how is this phenomenon, this principle, Chokhmah is after all a faculty. How is Yeshu Amiti known to this faculty without any kind of presentation? And why is it uniquely known to Chokhmah, not to any other faculty? And why is that limited to Yesh Ha'amiti? And this is what was left yesterday, and I hope to present it and raise our consciousness to understand this union. Pardon me. We spoke many times of the phenomenon that you may be observing the inside of a room from a clear window, even an open window. And you can see everything in detail and everything that's taking place. Yet, when you enter inside the room, your awareness is of a different caliber completely. Although, in fact, in terms of observing what's going on, you're very limited. When you're outside, you're much easier. You can actually observe the entire panorama from wall to wall and see everything that's going on. Whereas when you're inside, you can only see that which is in front of you. If you want to see to the side, you have to turn there. So in fact, your observation is limited much less when you're inside than when you're outside. And yet, we all agree that being inside is a wholesome experience. You, in effect, you know much more about the room when you're inside than when you're outside. And the question is, how is that, and what is it that we know? So we explained many times that if you have a house and you have your dwelling apartment, and in this apartment there are several rooms, amongst them is the dining room. As you enter this dining room, you immediately identify this as the dining room. And at that moment, you already see in your mind's eye all the furnishings that fit into this room. Although they're not there yet. The question that we have to ask ourselves, if we appreciate this phenomenon, this experience, the question that we have to ask ourselves, where did these furnishings come from? Is this our projection? Is this our imagination? Or is it presented to us by the reality of this room? So I'm explaining, and we explained many times, and we came to the conclusive point. If it were our imagination, then we would have to first become aware of the need of the furnishings. I need a table, I need a chair, I need this, and then we project its existence. But this is not the way this view this surfaces in our mind. We immediately see a completely well-appointed room with all its inhabitants, so to speak. that is due to our innate, to our deep understanding that a dining room is really a human truth. It is not a response to some kind of a need, some kind of a lack, I should say. This is, again, connected. The background for this is very important to understand. The human being, his presence in the world is not something that he has to fight for, not because he claims it. The whole world was created for him, so that he would transform it and translate it into a human value, human status. So that everything in the world, ultimately, represents the human spirit. And if it is a home, this home represents the human spirit of what a home is. So that if there is a home, and in this home there is a dining room, the dining room comes to life by virtue of the fact that that there's a human being there. This is not something which is a response to a lack. It is imbued. It's called meir. It's brought. The reality of it is brought by the human being. And as I said, we have these misholim, and the value of these misholim is because they are from life itself, and hopefully we can sense in our own intellect this phenomenon. That if you are in fact inside a home, you sense immediately the presence of all the things that complement the home. And the presence of the home itself per se, what a home stands for, you immediately recognize it. It is not just to protect you from the ice and snow, from the cold. It's a home. Meaning, it was created to begin with. The whole phenomenon was created because to accommodate and to make not to accommodate, to reveal the value, the status of a human being in the world. This is what we call a fundamental truth. It's not yesh amiti, but within our realm of thought, this is like a fundamental truth. The human being's presence in the world is a fundamental truth. The world would be lacking if it did not have the human being. We discussed it many, many times in the past. The human being present, he complements the world rather than the world accommodating him. He accommodates the world. He complements the world. He makes the world into a world. And thusly, his presence and the effect of his presence is an immediate reality. It does not come via question of where am I going to sleep. This has an element of reality, so it's like emes. Turning from that to the principle of Yesh Ho Amiti, the true Yesh. If there is such a thing as a true human presence that effectuates the effect of his presence even before he is there, we should be able to project and find in our chokhmah, find in our soul, in our life element, the truth of a Yesh Ho Amiti. The principle of Yesh Ho Amiti, there's no way that we'll understand because it is beyond understanding. But the principle of the term Yesh Ho Amiti, in our world, in the physical world, there is the order of things surfacing is there's first a need and then there is a response to the need. The need represents a lack. Like you said, I have to have a chair, a seat, a place where to sit or to stand. If I'm there, I need that place. There's a need, and that there is a response to the need. In other words, the lack precedes its fulfillment, its accommodation. Just as the process of creation, it initially was dark and then light was brought in. Therefore, from this perspective, light is on a secondary level of reality to darkness. Light was a response to darkness. This is how things are on the worldly level. In truth, in the godly level, we could say the opposite is true. This is the principle of Yesh Ho Amiti. Yesh Ho Amiti means the true Yesh. Is Yesh a secondary level or a primary level? What comes first? Yes or no? Present or not present? So we're saying in godliness, Yesh Ho Amiti, that's the truth. The Yesh is the truth, not the non-presence. Non-presence had to be created by Tzimtzum and so forth. But the real thing is presence. That's a primary reality. Chokhmah. Okay, step back a moment. This is similar to the experience of being inside the room. When you're inside the room, everything, all the accommodations that the room provides for, are there by initial truth, not as a response to a need. There's nobody there. You don't need the table. It is the initial reality of it that represents all the things that brings forth and is the basis of all the things that ultimately fill it. Now, with the being, the presence precedes the not being. It is only on the worldly level that we realize that yes, that if it's lacking, we have to fill it. But in Tzad Yesh Amiti, lacking does not exist. And here is where the Rebbe would be learning about Chochmah. Chochmah has the oyer, the consciousness of the Yeshua Amiti. That's how Chochmah relates to things. In Chochmah there is no secondary knowledge. Chochmah has everything from a primary standpoint, primary knowledge. There's no convincing, there's no cause for knowing. I know because that's the truth. Yeshua Amiti. This is why we say this is in Chochmah. Chochmah is the only faculty, or the only element, because faculty, the only thing that we can identify, although Chochmah is really higher than a faculty in per se. Because of its beat, because of its sensitivity, it knows the truth before it recognizes its need. Chochmah, there is no need element. There is no absent, no lack. There's only the positive presence. Chochmah relates to Yeshua Amiti from a natural perspective. That's Chochmah. This is the way Chochmah is described in our Maimer. And the Rebbe said that this is in contrast to the way it's explained elsewhere, that also there is a similar level, but nonetheless, up there is a need of acquisition of knowledge. Because of its beetle, because of its connection and so forth, the vehicles, so it has a similar effect. Nonetheless, it's not the same as what we learned in this Maimer.
Right, go again in brief. Chochmah over there is seen as acquiring this view as opposed to having it innately.
Right. That's having it innately. Having innately everything as opposed to not ever knowing, that there's a possibility of not knowing.
Wait, we just got done saying how Chochmah works from the basis of Yeshua Amiti, does not deal with lacking, needs, none of that.
Right.
Fine. Then we said this is in contrast to what it says elsewhere, that what?
That Chochmah is something, is seeing the truth. Not being the truth, but seeing the truth.
As if to say, dealing a little bit with the lacking element.
Almost. The only thing is that because of its beetle, it doesn't sense the lacking, because it's completely connected to that which it sees. The union of vehicles.
And in our depiction here, the Chochmah is united with, or is being the truth.
That's right. It possesses the effect of the truth. Yeshua Amiti. And the difficulty that I sense we need to explain, how does it know without the process of knowledge? I explained the principle of that emes is known by virtue of being emes. That's Yeshua Amiti. Yeshua Amiti, the true presence. The true presence means it doesn't know that there's such thing of not being. If you know it by virtue of finding out, after not knowing, you're not knowing Yeshua Amiti.
Right, according to this view, there's no knower, basically. There's no not knowing.
That's right. This is why it's limited. Just 1 second, yes. This is why it's limited to Yesh Amiti. Because Yesh Amiti, the Yesh precedes the the knowing precedes the not knowing. Because it's Yesh Amiti. Yesh Amiti means it is present by virtue of its own recognizance. It makes itself. And thus, Chokhmah is totally sensitive to this. Just like I said, that when you're inside the room, you're sensitive to everything that's in the room, even though you don't see it. Yes, Shlomo.
And the way we learn this Ma'al Chokhmah, then comes out that Chokhmah doesn't need to have bittul because Chokhmah has it.
No, in our Maimon it's not based on bittul. Chokhmah is based in our Maimon. It's the it's imbued with the Emes Hamiti, with the Yeshu Hamiti. It's called Meir Yeshu Hamiti. The Chokhmah is Meir Oyer Yisov Yeshu Hamiti.
Will it be reconciled these two ways? Because it sounds like it's contradictory.
It is contradictory. Not contradictory, it's different. They have different levels. The Rebbe said that this is different. The way we're learning in this Maimon, the way it's explained elsewhere, is of a different caliber. There is a similarity. Yeah, there's a similarity, and because over there also there is a constancy, there's a dveikus, and dveikus in effect transforms it into what it is dobuk to. But nonetheless, it is annoying. Don't you understand that?
I'm drawing him, he puts his thing up, and it blocks.
Can't you hear that
blocks
it's
my view of
distracting
him.
people? Go sit next to him.
There's no reason for
You
it.
just were
There
told
is a
it's
reason for it.
distracting us.
What is the reason?
Okay, I'll explain to you afterwards. There is a reason. The fact is, it annoys him. That itself is already tells you something. Let me explain to you. I'm finished with this union, so I can interrupt for a moment. Light was created the first day of creation. And it is a divine light. It's yoiv, it's revealing and make everything revealed. There is no action involved, it is mamish light. Yet, the Rebbe did not eliminate darkness. Except he separates that there's a boundary of day and boundary of night. The world cannot exist by day only. Even though there's no activity, it is just revealed. The world needs a moment of passivity. Even though the activity is not disturbing it. When you go to sleep, you turn the lights off.
Yeah,
Why?
because I want to rest.
That means that light is disturbing. So when somebody looks at you, it's disturbing. It's exactly it.
I'm not looking at him.
Makes a difference. He doesn't know when you're looking at him. Right? He doesn't know who you're looking at. It seems like you're looking at him. The activity is
It
there.
doesn't seem that I'm looking at him. It seems like I'm looking at him over there.
Okay, but it seems to me that's why he's blocking it, because it is disturbing. Don't you understand that? He's telling you it's bothering him. You telling him no, it's not bothering you.
That doesn't explain things.
Okay. All right, let's continue. All right, so we finished the parentheses, and I said we are starting 7 lines from the top on page Tzadik Zayin, in the beginning of the line, and it begins with the word ubevo hashpos hachokma bibina. So we are back into our own mimer. We had the parentheses, we had the insert pointing out how this is described elsewhere. We're back to our mimer. In our mimer, we are saying that Chochma is Meir Oir, the Yesh Ha'amiti. Chochma knows things not by finding out about it. I said the moshel that I could see for this is like being inside the room. When you're inside the room, everything that belongs in the room, you already are aware of it, whether you see it, whether it's in front of you or in the back of you.
Is it right? Is it okay to think that when this in the room experience and the chokhmah that we just described, it's like there is no knowledge. There's just the being there. It's just him himself. Yeah.
That's right. That's what chokhmah is. Yeshu Amiti. It's both. It's chokhmah relating to Yeshu Amiti. Yeshu Amiti is also not discoverable.
Right, but it's all sort of subsumed into almost Bruyam Shabayam. It's all in the room. It's all just being there. There's no knower and knowledge anymore. It's sort of.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it is superior to Bruyam Shabayam. Bruyam Shabayam is a constant knowledge. This is more similar to what is described in the other place.
Wait, what? Okay, but what's not constant here? Seeming this.
No. Bruyam Shabayam is a constant knowledge. Constant knowledge is not the same as the reality itself.
Oh, as if to say even more unified then.
And that's right. Yeshu Amiti.
Huh.
Meir Yeshu Amiti. That's what's in the mind. Okay, I said 7 lines, and I think I know how to count. 7 lines from the top on page Tzadik Zayin. I said we're back into our mimer. Speaking of Chokhmah in this supreme manner, where Chokhmah is imbued with Yeshu Amiti. Not it sees it and knows it.
Okay, so all what we did before, seeing it back into our mimer means the other, what we just had was an aside. Oh, okay.
Right, that's what's on the side. It was in the parentheses.
Okay, so here we're back to the normal conception of Chokhmah where...
Prior to this mimer, wherever it speaks, it's discussed in terms of knowledge, of sight. Here he says a completely different, he presents Chokhmah in a completely different way. Let's continue just a few more words and we'll be able to have something to talk about. Ubevo hashpos hachokma bibino. And then when the hashpo of the chokhmah. The chokhmah, this is totally representative of Yeshu Amiti. It is very difficult to talk about Yeshu Amiti because there's nothing we can really explain. Yeshu Amiti, I said the best example in our experience is like being inside the room. You don't find out things. It is there by virtue of being there, by virtue of the truth of it. Yeshua Amiti precedes the need for its being. Precedes what it gives you. It's being there, that is what it gives you. And then, when the hashpoah of chokhmah, the effect of chokhmah, ultimately comes into bino, this is the phenomenal in that this hashpoah chokhmah, despite the fact that chokhmah is a super presence, not a world level presence. And yet, it is capable of giving hashpoah into bina. When this hashpoah chokhmah comes into bina, nikraz hashpoah chokhmah ayin. This is when the hashpoah of chokhmah is called ayin. Translation of the word ayin, non-entity. If it is a non-entity, so what are you talking about? Going back to our house example illustration. We said that all the furnishings that fit into the room, that belong in the room, are there before they brought in. Before they brought in, they're ayin. There's no non-entity. There's nothing there. When they brought in, they're tangible presences. The question that we must ask ourselves: which aspect of the furnishings is the truth of this room? The physical presence of the room, of the furnishings, or the ayin element of it? You understand the question?
Which is more true?
Yeah.
More.
So we discussed it, and we have to stop. I don't want to miss me down here. I want you to think about this. One very simple thing is, if the furnishing breaks, you're going to fix it and replace it. Why? Because the truth of its presence remains. What breaks is only the yesh, not the ayin. Right. You got it? We got it? We got it a little bit? Yes? Okay. You wrote it up a bit? Okay, very good. Okay, have a great day, and we will now proceed to. I'd like to done with this meeting. Okay. So, we actually.